Welcome everybody, it's Unstoppable Stiletsy with another Age of Empires 3 Definitive Edition casted match for you today, and now we got ourselves a fine German mirror deathmatch. Yep, the second one that Don Stowe and HV and I put together for us, so let's go over the map real quick and then we can get right into it. So the map here is the Caucasus, right here you got the Black Sea, and over here the Caspian Sea. Basically, the pathway to your opponent is a pretty narrow one, you know, especially with all these big mountain structures in the way as well. So, a lot of potential to choke point your opponent a bit in these narrow pathways and make the most of your artillery. So, we'll probably see a lot of that here. But without further ado, let's give it a go and see what happens here, shall we? Okay, so we see Don Stowe putting up a church, and HV and I would be doing the same thing up there. There's a very particular reason. Mercantilism. Mercantilism, as you see, gives you a whopping 4 shipments that you can use, right? That's pretty impressive, right? Oh yeah, big time. Now, what you're going to want to do with those, get all your production-based cards first. So, riding school, fencing school, and then start thinking about good upgrades you want to send. Sometimes somebody will ship a crazy attack card like the Winged Hussars or the Mercenaries here. That can sometimes be a powerful move early on, but yeah, big thing you definitely need to make sure you do. Build lots of houses, muchas casas, and lots of production buildings, stables, and barracks, right? You and your opponent have 20k of each resource, so it's very imperative that you use it right away before your opponent does against you, right? You got to get your army out fast because you could surely expect a opponent to be doing the same. And that's another interesting thing too. It's pretty common for people in Deathmatch to send out their Minutemen from the start and attack enemy villagers and harass them. Yeah, kind of like in Age of Empires 2 Deathmatches when you use your scouting hussar to attack their vills too. So it's a common thing. It's just like, you know, throwing a mosquito in their face so they're not focusing on the building or maybe even lose a villager that they have in the forward doing stuff. Yeah, anything you can do to slow your opponent down is always recommended. As we saw in the last time, war wagons, and more war wagons. Yeah, these war wagons are basically as good as any tank, you know. Lots of hit points, some decent hand armor if they do a melee. Range attack is pretty powerful too, 65 range attack, that's pretty insane. So yeah, it's usually going to be a really good unit to spam in these deathmatch games. The only time you might want to pull back a bit is if they go mass skirmisher. Yeah, if you see a lot of skirmishers like fortunately these ones right here, then you might want to consider adding some Ulons or artillery in instead. But yeah, even so, they can return some pretty good return fire, since it is about 65 damage after all. Just not very cost effective in the end. One thing you need to make sure you do in these early stages, make sure you don't lose too much soldiers, right? Those 20k resources don't last forever, and it's going to take a little while to get your economy set up, right? You can see some of the factories coming up now. You also see a queue of villagers here. Right, so how many town centers is HV and I on? 1 as well? Yep. Eventually you want to move your way over to 2 and eventually 3 TCs, because eventually your 20k resources is going to fall short and you're going to need some vill economy to make up for that, right? So right now they're probably keeping it nice and slow and steady right now because they're in the middle of direct combat, but once, you know, they get a little breathing room, I guarantee you we'll see a TC or 2 come up here so they can actually keep up with that necessary eco. Interesting idea there, trying to put the war wagons in a huge line and do some spread out fire there. Didn't seem to do too much and he had to retreat. We see some culverins. It's a good preemptive move by Don Stowe to ensure he has protection from horse artillery, mortars, any sort of cannon like that. Right, because as you can see, Don Stowe is adding in his own skirms now, so he needs a way of guaranteeing they're actually going to survive long enough to deal with the war wagons here. It's really important, right? And always the interesting wild card with Germany, you get free Ulons with your cards, so even if they don't train them directly, you're still going to have to deal with at least a few of them, and sometimes it can be pretty chaotic, just like this one that almost took out a culverin there. Yeah. Definitely one of the weirder aspects of dealing with the Germany is those random hand cavalry attacks that seem to come out of nowhere, just because they come for free with the cards. Seems like right now HVNI is in the pushing position, and Don Stowe is trying to decide where is he going to set up his defensive line. It looks like his culverins are probably going to be wiped out, and now he's setting up a line of horse artillery, probably to try to blast apart those skirms. Also the Uhlans making a move on the skirms as well. Big issue is, though, you got a big line of war wagons there, just chomping through everything. Also, HVNI sent his ship into the winged hussars in too. Those things are brutally powerful. They get a really insane charge attack, as you can see right there. 3 splash, 72 crush damage. That is pretty insane. That's a big bump of damage. So wherever those things might land, they're going to do full through and through damage, right? Even fighting their way through the hand armor of those war wagons. That just shows you how powerful a winged hussar charge can actually be. Definitely. So it looks like both sides have captured their natives. House of Fanar here, as well as the House of Fanar over there. So expect Evzanai and Boyars to be added, right? Boyars obviously a very solid hand cav, and then the Evzanai of skirmisher. The mercenaries coming forward there with the swords, basically forcing the war wagons bit back. The good thing, though, for the war wagons, again, they have hand armor. So they can, they can tank some of the damage. Just not a lot, since they are technically halberdier level mercenaries. So, yeah, you gotta be careful of that stuff. Also the Lanich unit, I've said the word. They have a bit of a charge attack themselves, where they do a bit of splash damage too, so you have to be careful of that as well. Interesting thing about the Boyars, they have a rate of fire of about 1 on their hand attack. That's pretty powerful, because it means every 3 seconds they're literally getting 3 attacks out with their swords, which is really, really speedy. Most hand units would have like a hand attack of like 1.5 or something like that, so when you see it be 1 like that, that's actually pretty big, actually. Yeah, like this one, for instance, 1.5. The Boyar would be 1. Also, every now and then, we can expect these Greek revolutions to make a pretty significant impact on the match. Basically, when you send this ability out, you get a big group of the Sacred Band infantry, which are basically a bunch of Greek musketeers with a bit of extra range and rate of fire, I believe. So, not quite like normal musketeers. They have a bit of a good anti-infantry preference as well, just due to that better shooting rate and range. So yeah, that'll definitely be good. Evzanai's here, the skirms. Oh, looks like Don Stowe has decided to change his crossbowman to Landwehren. Now, this is a nice little budget option you can do with Germany. If you feel like you're going to burn through your gold very fast playing a deathmatch, you can opt for this card to essentially turn your crossbowman into the Landwehr, which basically have higher damage but less multipliers, if that makes any sense. So if you look at right here, they have a multiplier of about 2.1 against heavy infantry and about a 1.67 multiplier against the dragoons. So, not as good as a regular skirm, but definitely output damage. 32 damage is not that bad. Not that bad at all. Do we see something similar from HVNI, or HVNI is sticking with just plain old skirms and Evzanai? So I think he's probably going to do that for a while. Does he have the Landwehren option in his deck? He does not have the Landwehren option, so he's going through and through skirmishers to the end. Now, one thing that HVNI does in his Germany decks, he loves to do natives. So he uses this circle card to cycle between the Brunswickers, the mounted infantry, and the cuirassiers from Saxony. Also the infinite Austrian line infantry card in there. So yeah, that definitely gives you the benefit of having a much bigger army, obviously, right? Since natives don't cost any population space, they are simply a unit with the build limit. So if you can cycle through that card enough times, you got a nice beefy army of hand cavalry, ranged anti-infantry cavalry, and musketeers to supplement your forces pretty much. since they're all sort of unit roles that Germany natively doesn't have from their trainable roster, right? Definitely. So, right here we see some boyars and Uhlans make a charge for HVNI towards the artillery. They do connect, and they do a bit of damage, but don't wipe anything out exactly. Probably was a good way of moving the needle forward a bit on the front lines. Now we see a bunch of Don Stow boyars trying to meet shield in the front there. Backing up a bit and now plowing forward again. Basically the war wagons are that big impenetrable wall that keeps any hand cavalry from really getting too far there, pretty much. And this is sort of the thing I preluded to at the start of the match. This mountain structure here in the Caucasus mountain range here essentially makes it so all these troops are so closely coupled in this little pathway here. This makes things like culverins, horse artillery, mortars, heavy cannons do so much of a better job at their fighting, because now when they're doing their splash damage, all the units are naturally close together now, so now they're going to fall within that area of effect damage that they normally wouldn't if it was like in a big open Great Plains type thing. Yeah, definitely. We see some of these Mount Athos monasteries being set up over here, which is pretty cool, pretty much. Normally this is only a sort of church structure you could get as the Ethiopian Civ, but the House of Fanar lets you get a couple of them that you can stick on mines around the map, which is pretty nice, since it brings you some nice needed coin, right? And once the coin is used up, it's a structure that stays there and can be used to research different useful technologies for you. And also heal nearby units too, just like a field hospital, as you can see there with the healing property of it. Oh wow, look at this big push by HVNI with his war wagons, taking up so much space here with that big bulky presence. Now that he's in this quadrant, he can sort of shoot at an angle to rip through the remaining war wagons here and start making snipes on the culves, which is pretty good. He could also reach back too to get these mortars, just so he doesn't lose any ground to them. Whenever you're in a sort of battle in Age of Empires 3, mortars is the way that you lose ground, right? Culverins obviously destroys your artillery, and then the mortars will basically remove all the progress you made on the map with your production building. So it's really imperative that you target them and sort of reach them as fast as possible. The longer they linger around, the more you're going to be stalled out with trying to push forward, and sometimes it could even be GG for you if you can't get rid of them. So, very good for HVNI getting rid of that. Now, it does look like HVNI is running out of coin. He is running out of coin right now. Don Stow has coin because he ended up going with the budget option of the land we're in here. So, he's actually in a much better position in saving his coin for artillery, right? So if he wants to go with some more mortars or culves, he can actually afford it, whereas HVNI can't. Yeah, it just shows you sometimes going with the budget units like the crossbows and the pikes, that's a pretty good option, you know, and you should definitely always consider that when you're in a deathmatch situation, right? Most definitely. So it looks like some Uhlans there attacking the priest. One priest is wiped out. Very interesting. Yeah, basically priests can always be a good option in any sort of game to heal some of your injured troops, particularly when you're in this section of the deathmatch where your resources are starting to fall apart. One thing that might keep you alive is actually healing up some injured troops that aren't necessarily defeated yet, right? If you can heal up some war wagons, heal up some skirms, heal up a cannon or two, that's going to keep your resource count slightly above that of your opponent and make a huge difference, right? Also, we see petards making a move here from HVNI on the right side of the map. HVNI loves petards. It's one of his most favorite tools for causing chaos on the field and gaining an edge on the battlefield, right? Obviously, when you have a bunch of petards seeking targets out on the map, it forces resources away from the front lines and allows you to win the fight, right? And obviously, if they don't choose to counteract them, very good chance your factories are going to be sniped, and then eventually your town centers too, which, you know, is just the beginning of the end pretty much, because eventually once you lose the factories and your trickles from the factories are gone, and yeah, then you're at just an overall disadvantage against your opponent resources wise. So yeah, definitely that's why that's the case. Skirmishers. Don Snow's making some skirms. Looks like HVNI has a big stockpile of food and wood. Very, very good, in fact, yep. So it looks like, at least from what I see here, HVNI did ally up with the House of Hanover from his Prince Elector's card. So basically this card lets you pick one of the German natives, Hanover, Habsburg, Oldenburg, Wen, or Wittelbach, to ally with them and be able to train their units from the embassy. Note that those units will cost population. Yeah, basically for balance reasons, but still it's a good thing to have, right? As you know, the Caucasus of Hanover have a charge attack, so good way for pushing the enemy back, getting rid of some infantry units in the front, and allowing you to plow forward, right? Looks like that did not go so successfully, and Don Stow is able to hold the line in the Mound Pass, right? Now looks like the Coverants have been wiped out, except for that last one, which will be wiped out now to the war wagons. Now looks like Don Stow is emerging out of the Mound Pass. What will HVNI do to basically secure his position? We'll have to see. Also looks like horse artillery are actually going to start targeting these native embassies, which is going to make it a bit harder for Don Stow to get his natives up to the front lines. Also is going to prevent him from making any sort of House of Hanover natives like the Brunswickers, the Tonkopfs, or the drummers. Seems like food is looking good for HVNI. Wood is looking good. Let me look at Don Stow. So his wood is burnt out, but he's got some more coin. Right? Making all those land warren is obviously draining his wood a lot faster. Right? Heavy cannon. Where did that come from? So did he ship those in? Yep. It's pretty common, again, in the Deathmatch to see these late game Age 4 artillery cards be a part of that. Especially the infinite ones, you know. 2 Culverins or 4 Ulons can be a really essential tool to have if you're low on coin. And somebody's pushing you with mortars and anti-infantry types of cannons like the Falconet, the Gatling, the heavy cannon, etc., etc. Basically, when you're in that sort of situation, the Culverins are a difference between life and death, really. Basically, will you be able to stop their artillery and then make a move onto their infantry and cav? If you can't afford the Culverins, you need a way to be able to at least ship them in and trickle them in a bit. So, yeah, that's why that card is there. In the event that your coin does run dry, you need to be able to get Culverins throughout the match to prevent a total artillery takeover, yeah. Now, this is horrible. Villagers totally caught in a hunt over there, and they're all being wiped out. Yeah, that's always a poor situation, you know. Losing economy in this critical stage of the deathmatch, that could be fatal to you, you know. Every villager and the job it does for food, wood, or coin really matters at this stage. Also the numbers. So how many numbers does Don Stow have? About 58 builds, whereas HVNI has about 74. So HVNI still has a villager lead, right? Obviously he uses the Germantown farmers to train the settler wagons from the mills, and obviously those have a really good gather rate. Pretty much, particularly you want to boost it with this card, the Guild Artisans. This will boost all the settler wagons gather rate by 35%, and since a settler wagon has a native natural gather rate of 2 vills instead of 1, it's really like boosting its productivity up by like 70%, so almost 3/4 of more of what it does. Yeah, it's quite good. A nice little Yulon raid there by Dawn. Boyars make it over here and connect, wiping out multiple settlers with their fast rate of attack. Question is, how much will they get to do? HV9's Vil numbers are dropping up. He's got more Yulons over here too, and he intercepts the Culverins. Now this is very big, because these Culverins are not cheap. He's gonna want to get these war wagons here over now and try to salvage some of these. He loses one of them, which is quite a big loss. How many does he have? So he has 2 of them. Okay, so he did save 2 of them. Yeah, that's a big relief. If he lost both of those, that's like 1,200 coin loss and about 300 wood. nothing to laugh at. Now, we're in the mountain pass again, where we are seeing a line of war wagons with skirmishers from Don Stowe with some culverins trailing behind, trying to move their way through. Some horse artillery by HVNI is going to try to tear apart some of those skirmish units, but now the culverins get into the line of fire and do take out one of them. Actually, they take out both of them, so that threat is now gone, and now the rest of these skirmishers and landwearing can move in for the push, yeah. And then the culverins here trying to intercept those ones. Manages to take... I got some of the bowyards through again, and now he's going to lost another culverin, and this one is almost gone now. It goes a little bit too forward or something. A war wagon could take that out in one hit, potentially. That's a big thing to look out for. Where are we at on resource? So we have HVNI with 67 vills and Don Stowe with 62. So the vill gap is closing a bit. You know, HVNI lost some of his lead, and it looks like Don Stowe added a little more in, pretty much. Yeah, but you can definitely tell all the resources on Don Stowe are underneath, 1,000 res pretty much. So, yeah, quite insane there. How quickly things are moving along here. Good thing for Don Stowe, he did get some outposts in the area, so those cannon attacks are going to work to his advantage and potentially wipe out mainly some of the infantry that's invading him right now. Horse artillery completely bare over there, get completely washed out. It's totally not the thing you want to deal with, honestly. Quite the opposite. Yep. Here come the Ulans there with the war wagons. Yep. Yep, take that one out. Yep. Mortars and petards. Here we are with the petards again. Now, I wonder what that's going to result in. Who knows? Yeah. We'll see. We'll see what ends up happening out of that. Alright, so looks like HVNI is going pretty deep. Right? And done. Barely enough wood to keep making landwearing. Has to save all that coin for either war wagons or horse artillery. Seems to be on the back pedal right now, and he needs to make a pretty significant win here on the battlefield to wipe out most of that infantry that's invading right now. Right now, HVNI has the advantage, and he can push the advantage now into the base. Potentially targeting vills, potentially taking out structures, or at the very least keeping Don Stowe from building a cohesive army and bleeding him dry of his ability to fight. So, yeah, and here comes the finisher right here, the mortars. Now, the mortars provided Ulans. Yep, he lost one there, but yep, provided the hand cavalry doesn't wipe these out. The mortars is what you're going to do to basically start pushing Don Stowe back by huge amounts. Similarly, you can do the same thing with petards. Petards do it up at close range, obviously, and are one-time use thing. Whereas the mortars, the long-range solution that, we're going to keep working until the culverins or hand cav get to them, basically. Yeah. So we can already start to see some of those structures falling on Don Stowe's side there. Barracks down, outposts are being cleaned up. This one will probably be next. So, yeah, I mean, you're going to need one last hurrah as Don Stowe, I think, to really salvage this. You can't keep going in with these little armies. You're going to need to get some artillery, maybe some culverins, maybe some dragoons and stuff, and skirms, and really just build a huge wall of defense. So like war wagon, skirm, horse arty, and cove, something like that. Just make up for all the lost ground that you just lost. It has to be a really favorable fight too, because you do not have the resources to, make up for what you just lost. It's really not looking great for you right here. And it definitely doesn't help the fact that HVNI is getting all these pop-free native units too, like the mounted infantry, the Brunswickers, the Saxon cuirassiers, all in a constant loop, being pounded into the normal population of HVNI's army to just keep pushing and pushing. Yeah. Like, what's the army size of, yeah, you can tell, like, it's a 30 population or so difference there. So, you know, HVNI is definitely making the push work. Big time. Quite significant, actually, yeah. War wagons do hold the line there, finally, with some horse artillery and skirmish to boot. Culverin, trying to flank from the side, ends up getting flanked itself by more Ulans, surprisingly, yep. So does, basically HVNI have any cards left where he's going to be getting Ulan? Yeah, this. All these, basically, yeah. Big time. So many war wagons down now that basically Don has to pull back a bit, try to regain his footing. Maybe use some of those outposts to clean up some of the skirms. Trying to surround a bit with the boyars too. And from what I'm seeing, it's not looking too great. No, not at all. So I don't know how this is going to go exactly. It's definitely not looking good though. Definitely not. Absolutely not. GG. Absolutely, that's a good game there. Yeah, basically, yep. So let's check out post-game stuff for fun and see what happens. So, looks like in the end, Don Stowe actually had the slightly better, actually had a pretty good economy. I mean, he had like almost 10k resources over HVNI over the course of the game. But when it comes to like military, HVNI was able to have less units but do more, slightly better combat performance, made better use of his artillery and hand cavalry and dragoons and skirms to sort of create a cohesive force that would always look to find exploits in Don Stowe's corners, basically using petards to take out structures. I mean, look at whopping 12 building siege versus just 8 on this side. Yeah. Really good mirror there of Germany versus Germany. Yep. I believe they have another one like this too that I'll be going into next, but definitely enjoy the last one I did as well as this one, and I'll be signing off now from this one. GG and well played everyone. Great games overall.